Picture this. You're standing at the edge of your territory 50,000 years ago. A figure walks out from the tree line. You've never seen this person before in your life. They're not from your group. They don't speak your language. They could have a weapon hidden under that hide they are wearing. They could be here to kill you, rob you, or just check out your camp before attacking later. And yet, somehow, in thousands of places across the ancient world, moments exactly like this one ended not in violence, but in trade. A stranger walked away with something they needed. So did you. No laws existed to punish either of you if things went wrong. No money backed by any government. No police to call. No court to drag anyone in front of. Just two people who had never met, standing face to face, with nothing forcing either of them to keep their word except whatever was going on inside their own head. So how did that actually work? How do you trust a total stranger with something valuable when there's nothing stopping them from just taking it and running? What ancient humans came up with is stranger, smarter, and way more interesting than you'd think. And it's basically the opposite of what most of us were taught about how trade and trust got started. Let's start with the obvious assumption, because you've probably heard this one before. The story goes like this. Before money, people bartered. I had chickens, you had wheat, we swapped. Simple. Money came along later to fix the problem when barter got annoying. That's the version taught in basically every economics class on Earth. It's mostly wrong. Anthropologists who actually went and lived with hunter-gatherer and small-scale societies almost never found this pure barter system people assume existed. What they found instead was something much stranger and honestly much smarter. Inside a community, among people who already knew each other, trade barely looked like trade at all. It looked like favors. I give you meat today because you'll help me build my shelter next week. Nobody's keeping score. Nobody's demanding payment right away. The whole thing runs on memory, relationship, and the unspoken understanding that it'll even out eventually. Researchers studying these gift economies found this kind of giving actually strengthens the bond between people. The favor itself is the point. It's what keeps the group tied together. But here's the catch nobody talks about. That only works between people who already trust each other. People who'll see each other again next week, next month, next year. People with a reputation to protect inside a small world where everyone knows everyone. So what happens the moment a stranger shows up? Someone outside the group. Someone with no shared history, no shared community, no way of knowing if you'll ever see them again. That's exactly where the whole system we just talked about falls apart. And this is the part that actually answers our question. Barter, real, on the spot, no credit barter, wasn't humanity's first economic system. It was the solution specifically for strangers. Because you can't do someone a favor when you might never see them again. You can't say I'll pay you back next month to someone who's about to walk off and disappear forever. With strangers, you needed something settled right there, on the spot. Equal value. Traded immediately. Nobody owing anybody anything once it was done. That's the whole reason barter exists. Not as the foundation of the economy, but as the answer to one very old problem. What do you do with someone you can't trust because you don't know them at all? Now here's where it gets really interesting, because humans figured out something even better than barter for dealing with strangers, and it goes back way further than you'd think. Trade. Real trade. Across real distances, with people who are never going to become your neighbors. Archaeologists have traced obsidian, a sharp volcanic glass used for cutting tools, traveling hundreds of miles from where it came from. We're talking journeys of 200-300 kilometers, sometimes more, tens of thousands of years before anyone invented writing, let alone money. Someone mined that obsidian. Someone carried it, or passed it hand to hand through a chain of people, most of whom would never meet each other face to face. And somehow it worked. Somehow that stone made it from a volcano to a toolkit hundreds of miles away without a single piece of paper, a single coin, a single law making sure the deal went through. So how does that work without trust? The answer is humans came up with something almost as strong as trust. A reputation that traveled. The first time you deal with a stranger, sure, that's risky. But the second time, the 10th time, the 100th time, you start to notice something. Certain traders kept showing up. Certain groups kept their word. And slowly, across these long invisible trade routes, your reputation became your currency, long before currency existed. You didn't need a law telling you not to scam the obsidian trader. You needed the simple fact that if you scammed him, word would travel down that same route, and nobody down the line would ever deal with you again. In a world without writing, without money, without any central authority, that alone was enough to keep entire trade networks running for tens of thousands of years. But reputation only gets you so far. Eventually, humans needed something more permanent. Something that didn't rely purely on memory. And that's where this story takes a turn that surprises almost everyone. We assume the order goes barter, then debt, then money. But some of the oldest economic records we've ever found tell a different story. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 3500 BCE, before coins existed anywhere on Earth, people were recording debts. Clay tablets covered in symbols showing exactly how much grain, how much silver, how much of anything one person owed another. This wasn't barter. This was bookkeeping. A physical, lasting record of trust between two people who might not even be in the same room when the debt finally got paid back. Even older than that, archaeologists have found tally sticks, simple pieces of wood or bone with notches cut into them, recording deals long before any writing system existed. Split a stick down the middle, each person keeps half, and the two halves only match up if nobody's messed with it. It's almost stupidly simple, and it worked because it solved the exact same problem we started with. How do you trust someone when memory alone isn't enough? You make the trust physical. You carve it into something neither person can fake. So picture the whole timeline now. Inside small, stable communities, trust ran on memory and relationship, an invisible web of favors nobody bothered to keep track of. With strangers nearby, barter took over, instant, equal, no debt involved because there was no guarantee of seeing them again. With strangers far away, across trade routes stretching hundreds of miles, reputation did the job instead of law, carried by word of mouth down the same paths the goods traveled. And eventually, once deals got too complicated for memory or reputation alone, humans started writing trust down. Notches in wood, symbols in clay. The earliest records in human history, made not to track wealth for its own sake, but to solve one old, stubborn problem. How do I trust someone I might never see again? Money didn't solve that problem first. Money was actually one of the last things humans came up with in this whole chain, not the first. Long before coins, long before paper, long before any government stood behind a currency and said this is value because we say so, humans had already built working trade networks across entire continents using nothing but reputation, memory, and a few marks carved into wood and clay. So next time you tap a card to pay a complete stranger for your coffee, think about what's actually happening underneath that simple move. You're not doing anything new. You're just running the latest version of a system your ancestors spent tens of thousands of years building from scratch, one favor, one trade, one carved notch at a time, long before any of them even had a word for money.